Hello, this is Cio Rodriguez. In this section of the exam SC 100, Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect, we are going to cover the last domain of this section. Domain 5, it's recommend security best practices and priorities. In this section, we will cover 28 practice questions with detailed explanation in order to pass this certification exam. As I just mentioned, this is the last domain of this exam. The recommend security best practices and priorities. So if this is the first time that you're watching these videos, I would recommend that you watch the for previous videos in order to that is if you are interested in taking this security exam, right? Question number 1. You are designing the requirements for a DevSecOps process for your organization. What are 2 security requirements that you should include in the plan and develop phase? The correct answer are B, pre-commit hooks and threat modeling. Threat modeling and pre-commit hooks should be included as part of a CI/CD DevSecOps process for application development. In order to understand this question, obviously, we need to understand what are pre-commit hooks. In the context of DevSecOps and version control systems like Git, pre-commit hooks are scripts or custom actions that are executed automatically before a code commit is completed. They allow developers to enforce certain checks, validations, or actions on their code before it gets committed to the repository. Pre-commit hooks are a valuable practice for ensuring code quality, security, and adherence to coding standards early in the development process. Question 2. A blank approach to security is defined as part of the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture, MCRA. A zero trust security approach is recommended as part of the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture. Question 3. You are designing the security requirements for a web application. You need to identify a sample of non-technical questions to begin defining the requirements. What should you use? OWASP threat modeling provides simple non-technical questions that can help you begin the process of defining security requirements for a web app. Question 4. You are designing the asset protection requirements for your cloud environment. You need to be able to audit and automatically remediate any service that do not have the log analytics agent installed on them. What should you use? Azure policy allows you to create policies that audit and automatically deploy other templates if something does not already exist. We have talked in many times throughout this class, practice questions about Azure policies. But what are actually Azure policies, right? An Azure policy is a service provided by Microsoft Azure that allows you to enforce and maintain compliance with organizational standards, best practices, and regulatory requirements across your Azure resources. It provides a centralized and automated way to define, assign, and monitor policies that govern how resources are configured and deployed within your environment. Key features and concepts of Azure policy include policy definitions, conditions, effects, scope, assignments, compliance, built-in and custom policies, integration with Azure Resource Managers, ARM. If you do not understand this concept, so I would suggest that you pause and understand what they mean, because you may need that information in order to answer other questions within this exam. Question number 5. You are designing the requirements for a DevSecOps process for your organization. What are two security requirements that you should include in the build and test phase? Correct answers are C, infrastructure scanning, and D, security acceptance testing. Infrastructure scanning and security acceptance testing should be included as part of a CI/CD DevSecOps process for application development. Question number 6. Your organization is defining security policies for a migration to the cloud. You need to recommend a tool to use for identifying the use of a stolen account's credentials. What should you use? Azure AD, Identity Protection, provides insights for a stolen account credentials. Question 7. Your organization is defining security policies for a migration to the cloud. Which resource should you recommend to use for technical and non-technical security controls? Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark, or MCSB, provides both technical and non-technical security controls to follow for best practices in the cloud. Drag the DevSecOps process into the correct order. The correct order is as follows. 1. Plan and develop. 2. Commit the code. 3. Build and test. 4. Go to production. And 5. Operate. Question 9. You are designing the requirements for a DevSecOps process for your organization. What are two security requirements that you should include in the go to production phase? The correct answers are B, configuration checks, and D, smoke tests. Configuration checks and smoke tests should be included as part of a CI/CD DevSecOps process for application development. In the context of CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development, and DevSecOps, a smoke test, also known as a smoke test suite or a build verification test, BVT, refers to a set of initial tests that are conducted on a software build or deployment to quickly identify major issues or failures. The purpose of a smoke test is to determine if the build is stable enough for further testing and validation in the software development life cycle. Question number 10. You are designing an authorization strategy for an organization. You need to protect privileged accounts that can access security events and notifications. Administrators must provide justification when accessing these tools. What should you use? A. Conditional access. B. Role-based access control. C. Privileged access workstations. D. Privileged identity management. Privileged identity management allows you to protect elevated access and can require justification when activating elevated roles. Question 11. You are designing security for an organization. You need to identify a way to monitor brute force attempts such as password sprays. What should you use? A. Defender for Cloud. B. Defender for Identity. C. Defender for Information Protection. Or D. Defender for Microsoft 365. Defender for Identity includes the ability to monitor account access attempts, including password sprayed attempts. Explain the difference between Defender for Cloud, Defender for Identity, and Defender for Microsoft 365. There are, as you have seen, several Defender, and the Microsoft has rebranded all of these products. So I think it is important to understand the difference in order to answer some questions in this exam. Microsoft Defender for Cloud was formerly known as Azure Defender. Microsoft Defender for Cloud is a suite of services that provide advanced threat protection across various Azure services and resources. It's designed to enhance the security for your cloud workloads, including virtual machines, containers, serverless applications, and more. The main features of the Cloud Defender for Cloud include threat protection, integrated security, vulnerability management, and security recommendations. Microsoft Defender for Identity, formerly Azure Advanced Threat Protection, is basically focuses on detecting and responding to advanced identity-based threats within an organization's on-premises Active Directory and hybrid environments. It helps protect against identity-based attacks by analyzing user behaviors and detecting anomalies. Key features of the Microsoft Defender for Identity include behavioral analytics, threat intelligence, attack timeline, and risk assessment. Microsoft Defender for Microsoft 365 was formerly Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. This Defender provides advanced security features for Microsoft 365 services, including email, collaboration tools, and cloud storage. It helps protect against threats such as phishing, malware, and ransomware across the Microsoft 365 environment. Key features of Microsoft Defender for Microsoft 365 include email protection, safe attachments, safe links, and threat intelligence. In summary, Microsoft Defender for Cloud focuses on protecting cloud workloads and resources. Microsoft Defender for Identity focuses on identity-based threat detection in on-premises and hybrid environments. And Microsoft Defender for Microsoft 365 focuses on advanced threat protection for Microsoft 365 services like email and collaboration tools. In addition to the Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft Defender for Identity, and Microsoft Defender for Microsoft 365, there are other services in the Microsoft Defender family that are designed to provide security solutions for various aspects of an organization's IT environment. Some of these services include Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, formerly Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is an advanced endpoint security solution that helps protect services running various operating systems, including Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and Android. It provides real-time threat detection, investigation, and response capabilities to help organizations secure their endpoints against a wide range of security threats. Microsoft Defender for Office 365, which we already covered in the previous one, was formerly known as Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. It's very important to understand this different Defender family in order to successfully answer questions in this certification exam. Question 12. You are designing security for an organization. You need to block common attack techniques such as advanced macro activity and processes injection. What should you use? Attack surface reduction rules can help protect an endpoint against common attack techniques. Question 13. You are designing security with a focus on protecting an organization from ransomware. What are two methods of preventing attackers from getting in? The correct answer are A, endpoint security, and C, remote access security. Endpoint and remote access security are two key methods of preventing attackers from getting in and accessing an organization system. Question 14. Your organization is defining security policies for a migration to the cloud. You need to recommend a tool to use for identifying privileged accounts that might be compromised. What should you use? The correct answer is Defender for Identity. So what is Microsoft Defender for Identity and how does it work? And we already talked a little bit about this, but Microsoft Defender for Identity, which was formerly known as Azure Advanced Threat Protection, is a cloud-based security solution that focuses on detecting and mitigating advanced identity-based attacks and insider threats within an organization's on-premises Active Directory in hybrid environments. It helps organizations protect their network and sensitive data by analyzing user behavior, detecting anomalies, and providing insights into potential threats. How Microsoft Defender for Identity works. First of all, with data collection, um, behavioral analytics, anomaly detection, threat detection, and attack timeline. Please take a few minutes to go over these concepts and how they work, because this will help you answer several questions in this certification exam. Other techniques are threat intelligence, risk assessment, automated response, and investigation and reporting. In summary, Microsoft Defender for Identity enhances an organization's security by analyzing user and entity behavior, detecting anomalies, and alerting on potential threats related to identity-based attacks. It provides insights, tools, and automation to help security teams respond effectively to advanced threats within their network. Question 15. You are designing the requirements for a DevSecOps process for your organization. What are two security requirements that you should include in the operate phase? Penetration testing and threat intelligence should be included as part of a CI/CD DevSecOps process for application development. Question 16. What are the three principles of a zero trust approach to security? The three principles of a zero trust approach to security are assume compromise, implement the principle of least privilege, and verify explicitly. We have seen many questions regarding zero trust, and we will see more. But what is zero trust? Zero trust is a cybersecurity framework and a strategy that challenges the traditional security approach of assuming trust based on network location. Instead, zero trust advocates for a never trust, always verify mindset, where organizations treat every user, device, application, a network connection as potentially untrusted, regardless of their location or origin. The core principle of zero trust is to minimize the trust surface and reduce the attack surface by implementing strict access controls, a strong authentication, and continuous monitoring. This approach is particularly relevant in today's complex and dynamic IT environments where data breaches and cyber attacks are on the rise. The key concepts of the zero trust model include: one, verify uh, identity; two, least privilege; three, micro-segmentation; four, network security; five, continuous monitoring; six, access control policies; seven, encryption; and eight, adaptive security. Take a moment to go over these concepts and you try to understand them, because there are, again, if you don't understand them, of course, there will be many questions in this exam uh, concerning zero trust. Question 17. You are designing security with a focus on protecting an organization from ransomware. What are two methods of preventing attackers from escalating privileges? The answers are detection and response and a privileged access strategy both fall in the category of preventing attackers from escalating their privileges if they are able to gain access to a system. Question 18. Your organization is defining security policies for migration to the cloud. Which resource should you recommend to use to help in planning detailed security control planning like threat detection coverage. A. Cloud Adoption Framework or CAF. B. MITRE ATT&CK Framework. C. Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture, MCRA. Or D. The Well Architected Framework, WAF. The MITRE ATT&CK framework provides a detailed list of security controls and attack vectors that can be used for planning. So what is MITRE ATT&CK and how does it work? MITRE ATT&CK, Adversarial Tactics, Techniques, and Common Knowledge, is a comprehensive framework used to describe and categorize the tactics, techniques, and procedures, or TTPs, that cyber adversaries use during different stages of a cyber attack. It provides a structured way to understand, analyze, and communicate about cyber threats and security measures. The goal of MITRE ATT and CK is to improve an organization's ability to detect, respond to, and defend against cyber threats by providing a detailed and a standardized knowledge base. How does it work? One, the matrix structure. MITRE is organized as a matrix with tactics and techniques listed along the rows and different threat actor groups or software tools listed along the columns. Each cell in the matrix represents a specific combination of a tactic used by adversaries and technique that they employ to achieve their goals. So tactics and techniques. Tactics are high-level objectives that adversaries aim to achieve during a cyber attack. Examples of tactics include initial access, execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defense evasion, credential access, discovery, lateral movement, collection, exfiltration, and impact. Techniques. Techniques are specific methods or procedures that adversaries use to accomplish each tactic. Each technique describes a step-by-step approach or action taken by threat actors. For instance, phishing is a technique under the initial access tactic. And sub-tactics, in addition um, to techniques, might also include sub-tactics that further break down specific variations or approaches within a technique. Other two important topics within the MITRE framework is the mapping to threat actors and tools, which provides mapping of techniques to specific threat actors groups and commonly used tools. This helps organizations understand which techniques are commonly associated with a specific threat actors or malware. And the mapping to defensive measures includes mappings to defensive techniques and best practices that organizations can implement to detect, prevent, or mitigate the impact of a specific technique used by adversaries. This is an example of the enterprise matrix for MITRE, and this is a great resource, a great page to navigate to. So here is the website. I would encourage you to go to the website and get to know it, get to know that page. But anyway, so this is we were talking about the techniques, right? In reconnaissance, there are 10. In resource development, there are 8 techniques. Initial access, there are 9 techniques. So you got execution, persistence, privilege escalation. There's 13 techniques how they do that. Defense evasion, there's a lot of them, right? Because obviously cyber criminals are looking at how to evade defenses, credential access, discovery, etc. So anyway, so great resource. Please take a look at that. So how do organizations benefit from the MITRE ATT&CK? One, threat intelligence. Organization can gain insights into the tactics and techniques used by real-world threat actors, helping them understand how access occurred and how adversaries operate. Risk assessment. By understanding the specific techniques that adversaries might use, organizations can assess the risk exposure and prioritize their cybersecurity efforts. Detection and response. Organizations can use the MITRE ATT&CK to design effective detection strategies and response plans, enabling them to better defend against cyber threats. Cybersecurity training. Security professionals can use the framework to enhance their understanding of attack techniques and develop better understanding. Red team and blue team exercises. Red teams simulate attacks using the MITRE framework techniques to test an organization defensive capabilities, while blue teams use the framework to improve incident response and threat hunting. Anyway, so this MITRE framework is widely used by cybersecurity professionals, researchers, and organizations to enhance their threat intelligence, security operations, and incident response capabilities. It provides a common language and knowledge base for discussing and addressing cybersecurity threats in a structured and comprehensive manner. Question 19. You are designing security for a legacy web app that does not directly support Azure AD authentication. You need to ensure that users can access the application by using Azure AD for authentication. What should you use? A. Azure AD application proxy. B. Azure Bastion. C. Application gateway. D. Azure front door. Azure AD Application Gateway allows you to forward authentication requests to Azure AD even if the legacy application does not directly support or integrate with Azure AD. Question 20. You are designing the security requirements for an organization. You need to accelerate and prioritize the security solution. What should you use? A. Cloud Adoption Framework. B. Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark. C. Well-Architected Framework. Or D. Zero Trust Rapid Modernization Plan or RAMP. The Zero Trust RAMP or Rapid Modernization Plan included with the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture. It's included to help prioritize and accelerate a security modernization company, right? Question 21. You are designing the security requirements for developers while writing application code. What can the developer use to assist in finding potential vulnerabilities during development? A. Azure DevOps pipelines. B. Azure policy. C. IDE security plugins. Or D. GitHub actions. Developers can use IDE security plugins in development environments to help identify potential security vulnerabilities while they are writing code. So, what are IDE security plugins in development environments? IDE or Integrated Development Environment security plugins are powerful tools that developers can use to enhance security during the software development process. These plugins integrate directly into the developer's IDE, providing real-time feedback and analysis of code for potential security vulnerabilities as they write code. This proactive approach helps identify and address security issues early in the development lifecycle, reducing the risk of introducing vulnerabilities that could be exploited later. Uh, some key benefits and features of using IDE security plugins include real-time feedback, code analysis, coding standards, custom rules, integration with issue tracking, educational resources, contextual information, and language and framework support, among others. Question 22. You are designing security with a focus on protecting an organization from ransomware. What are two methods of preventing attackers from destroying data? A. Data protection. B. Endpoint security. C. Protected folders. And D. Secure backups. Protected folders and secure backups can help protect data from being destroyed if an attacker gains access to a system. Question 23. You are designing security for an organization that uses a bring your own device strategy. You need to isolate any compromised personal device. What should you use? A. Defender for cloud. B. Defender for endpoint. C. Defender for information protection. D. Defender for Microsoft 365. Defender for endpoint integrates with Windows 10 and Windows 11 to isolate devices that are identified as being compromised. Question 24. You are designing the architecture for a sensitive database environment. You need to define how devices can manage the database. What should you do? A. Deploy a privileged access workstation. B. Encrypt the database with a Microsoft managed key. C. Encrypt the database with a customer managed key. Or D. Store the database connection string in Azure Key Vault. The correct answer is A. Deploy a privileged access workstation. MCRA, or the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture, recommends using a privileged access workstation, or PAW, to restrict access to sensitive information. So what is a privileged access workstation, or PAW? A PAW, or Privileged Access Workstation, is a dedicated and highly secure computer used by administrators and privileged users to perform tasks that require elevated access rights within an organization's IT environment. The primary purpose of a PAW is to mitigate the risk of credential theft, lateral movement, and unauthorized access by isolating administrative tasks from everyday computing activities. So some of the characteristics of a PAW are 1. Isolation, 2. Minimal software, 3. High security configuration, 4. Two-factor authentication, 5. Restricted internet access, and limited user accounts, among others. Question 25. You are designing security for remote access to virtual machines in Azure. You need to ensure that only HTTPS is exposed to the internet for remote access. what should you use? A, Azure AD Application Proxy, B, Azure Bastion, C, Application Gateway, or D, Azure Front Door. Azure Bastion is a PaaS service that allows you to use RDP or SSH to access a virtual machine and use HTTPS externally to access the Bastion service. What is an Azure Bastion or Azure Bastion service? Azure Bastion is a service offered by Microsoft Azure that provides a secure and seamless way to remotely access virtual machines within an Azure virtual network. It is designed to enhance security and simplify the process of connecting to VMs without exposing them to the public internet. Traditional remote access to VMs involves opening ports and exposing them to the internet, which can pose security risks if not properly configured and managed. Azure Bastion addresses this issue by providing a more secure alternative. It acts as a jump server or a gateway that allows you to connect to your VMs using remote desktop protocol or the secure shell SSH directly through the Azure portal without the need to expose public IP addresses or open inbound ports on the VMs themselves. Key features of Azure Bastion include 1. Secure connectivity, 2. No public IP required, 3. Integrated access, 4. Multi-factor authentication support, and 5. Audit and monitoring. Using Azure Bastion involves a few steps. 1. Deploy the Azure Bastion. 2. Configure the VMs. And 3. Connect. From the Azure portal, you navigate to the VM that you want to access and click on the Connect button. And then this opens a remote desktop session or SSH session through the Bastion service. Overall, Azure Bastion provides a more secure and convenient way to manage and access your Azure VMs remotely, eliminating some of the common security concerns associated with traditional remote access methods. Question 26. You are designing security for an organization. You need to ensure that administrator authentication is explicitly verified when accessing privileged apps. What should you use? A. Azure policy. B. Conditional access. C. Defender for cloud. Or D. Defender for cloud apps. Conditional access policies give you a way to create requirements for administrators to access privileged apps. Using conditional access is an excellent approach to enhancing security for administrators' authentication when accessing privileged apps. Conditional access is a feature in the Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, that allows you to create policies that determine the conditions under which users, including administrators, can access applications and services. It helps you implement dynamic access control based on various factors such as user identity, device health, location, and many more. Here's how you can use conditional access to improve security for administrators' authentication. 1. Define the access policies. 2. Multi-factor authentication enforcement. 3. Device compliance checks. 4. Location-based policies. 5. Risk-based policies. 6. Granular control. And 7. Monitoring reporting, among other. When using conditional access for administrators authentication, start by assessing your organization's security needs and identifying the scenarios where privileged access occurs. 2, create policies that align with your security requirements while considering usability and user experience. 3, regularly review and update policies to ensure that they remain effective and relevant as threat landscapes evolves. In summary, conditional access is a powerful tool for securing administrator authentication and access to privileged apps by dynamically enforcing policies based on contextual factors. It's a key component of a comprehensive security strategy for protecting your organization's sensitive resources. Question 27. Your organization is defining security policies for a migration to the cloud. Which resource should you recommend to use that includes assigned resources and best practices? A. Cloud Adoption Framework or CAF. B. The Microsoft Cloud Security Framework, MCSB. C. The Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture, MCRA. Or D. The Well Architected Framework, WAF. MCRA, or the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture, includes reference architectures and best practices for using the cloud. Question 28, and the last in this section. You are designing the requirements for a DevSecOps process for your organization. What are 2 security requirements that you should include during the code commit process? A. Application security testing. B. Dependency management. C. Infrastructure scanning. Or D. Smoke tests. Application security testing and dependency management should be included as part of a CI/CD DevSecOps process for application development. We have talked about DevSecOps. We have mentioned this concept several times, but what is it? DevSecOps is a software development methodology that emphasizes the integration of security practices and principles into the DevOps or development and operations approach. It aims to ensure that security considerations are an integral part of the entire software development lifecycle, from design and coding to testing, deployment, and ongoing operations. The goal of DevSecOps is to create a culture where security is not an afterthought, but is instead a shared responsibility among development, operations, and security teams. Here are some key principles and concepts for DevSecOps. 1, shift left. 2, automation. 3, collaboration. And 4, continuous and security monitoring. Now, none of this comes, you don't need to know much about DevSecOps for this certification exam, but again, it is important to understand these key principles. Other key principles are 5, infrastructure as code, security testing, and continuous improvement. It's important to understand that by implementing DevSecOps, organizations can better align development, operations, and security efforts, resulting in faster and more secure software delivery. This methodology helps organizations build a robust security foundation while maintaining the agility and speed of modern development practices. When designing a DevSecOps process, integrate security into the software development lifecycle. It's important to ensure that security requirements are incorporated at various stages, including the code commit process. So how are 2 security requirements, or rather, here are two security requirements that you should consider, including during the code commit process. One, static code analysis or SAST requirements. These requirements include automated scans, preventing vulnerabilities, feedback loops, and integration with CI/CD. And again, the CI/CD it stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. The other important part is the secrets detections and management requirement. And this requirement focuses on secrets detections and management through, again, automated scanning, prevents secret leakage, secure storage, and token rotation. By incorporating these security requirements into the code commit process, you establish a proactive approach to security by addressing vulnerabilities and sensitive information leakage early in the development lifecycle. This helps prevent security issues from propagating downstream and reduces the effort required for remediation at later stages. This concludes this section on this exam SC 100, the Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect. And here is a great resource, and this is free from Microsoft Learn. So if you want to, actually, you should use these questions in preparation after you have gone through these learning resources from Microsoft.